The birth of America and modern America. Introduction. Long before the United States became a nation, the land we now call America was home to diverse peoples and civilizations. From the sprawling villages of the Mississippian culture to the sophisticated trade networks of the Iroquois and Algonquin nations, this continent was rich in culture, innovation, and history. Europeans, drawn by tales of new lands, riches, and opportunities, began exploring these territories in the late 15th and early 16th centuries. Christopher Columbus's voyage in 1492, though controversial, marked the beginning of a profound transformation. Spanish, French, and English explorers would follow, establishing colonies and trading posts that forever altered the continent. As European ambitions grew, so did conflicts with the native populations. Disease, warfare, and colonization dramatically reshaped the lives of the continent's first inhabitants. Yet, amid these challenges, a new era was unfolding. A story of settlement, struggle, and the eventual birth of a nation that would change the course of world history. Chapter 1. The land before colonization. Before Europeans arrived, the Americas were a mosaic of vibrant cultures and sophisticated societies. The Mississippian people built massive earthen mounds for ceremonial and political purposes. The Iroquois Confederacy developed a complex system of governance that influenced later American political thought. In the Southwest, the ancestral Puebloans constructed intricate stone and adobe dwellings, demonstrating remarkable architectural skill. The indigenous peoples adapted to diverse environments, from the dense forests of the Northeast to the arid deserts of the Southwest. Trade networks spanned hundreds of miles, connecting distant communities through goods, ideas, and cultural practices. These civilizations were neither primitive nor isolated. They were dynamic, thriving societies that laid the foundation for future interactions with Europeans. Chapter 2. European colonization. In the 16th and 17th centuries, European nations competed fiercely to explore and colonize the Americas. Spain established vast holdings in the South and West, including Florida, Mexico, and the Caribbean. France claimed territories along the Mississippi River and in Canada. England focused on the eastern seaboard, establishing colonies like Jamestown in 1607 and Plymouth in 1620. Life in the English colonies varied. Some settlers sought religious freedom, like the Puritans in Massachusetts. Others sought economic opportunities, farming land or trading. Despite hopes for prosperity, colonists faced harsh winters, disease, and tensions with Native Americans. Yet, over decades, these settlements grew into thriving communities, laying the groundwork for a new society. Conflict and interaction. European colonization brought both cooperation and conflict. Trade with indigenous peoples introduced new goods and ideas, but competition for land and resources often led to violent clashes. By the mid-18th century, the colonies had developed unique identities, setting the stage for future rebellion and the fight for independence. Chapter 3. Road to Independence. By the mid-18th century, the English colonies in North America were thriving economically and socially. Farmers, merchants, and artisans built prosperous communities, and towns and cities began to flourish along the eastern seaboard. Yet beneath this surface of growth and opportunity, tensions were quietly simmering. The colonies had become accustomed to a degree of self-governance through local assemblies and town meetings. They managed their own affairs, passed local laws, and developed economies relatively free from British interference. But across the Atlantic, Britain faced enormous debts from wars, particularly the French and Indian War, and began to impose stricter control over its colonies. The first major point of contention was taxation. The British government introduced the Stamp Act of 1765, requiring colonists to pay taxes on paper goods, legal documents, and newspapers. Outrage swept through the colonies. Leaders like Patrick Henry in Virginia famously declared, "No taxation without representation," signaling that colonists would not accept taxes imposed by a government in which they had no voice. The British continued to assert authority with the Townshend Acts, taxing glass, tea, and other imports. Colonial resistance grew. Organizations like the Sons of Liberty formed, spreading ideas of liberty and organizing protests. The tension reached a boiling point in 1773 with the Boston Tea Party, when colonists, disguised as Native Americans, dumped an entire shipment of tea into Boston Harbor to protest the Tea Act. In response, Britain imposed the Intolerable Acts, aiming to punish Massachusetts and restore order. But these harsh measures only united the colonies further. The First Continental Congress convened in 1774, bringing together delegates from 12 colonies to discuss collective action. This marked the first step toward organized resistance and the idea of a united America. Key figures. Leaders emerged who would shape the revolutionary cause. George Washington, a skilled military officer, would later lead the Continental Army. Thomas Jefferson, a brilliant writer and thinker, would draft the Declaration of Independence. Benjamin Franklin, a diplomat and inventor, worked tirelessly to secure support from foreign nations. Together, these figures exemplified the determination and vision that fueled the revolutionary movement. By 1775, the conflict could no longer be avoided. British troops moved to suppress unrest in Massachusetts, leading to the battles of Lexington and Concord, often called the "shot heard round the world." These initial skirmishes ignited a full-scale revolutionary war, with colonies choosing to fight for freedom rather than submit to British rule. The revolutionary movement was fueled not only by political grievances but also by ideas of liberty, natural rights, and self-determination. Thinkers like John Locke inspired colonists to believe that government existed to serve the people, and that unjust rulers could be overthrown. These philosophical foundations provided moral justification for independence, giving the revolution both direction and purpose. By the summer of 1776, the colonies were ready to make a decisive break. The Second Continental Congress convened in Philadelphia, debating whether to formally declare independence. On July 4, 1776, the Declaration of Independence was adopted. Written primarily by Thomas Jefferson, it boldly proclaimed that all men are created equal and endowed with unalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This document became the foundation of a new nation and an inspiration for freedom movements worldwide. The road to independence was not easy. The colonies faced a powerful British army and navy, yet they persevered through remarkable resilience, strategic alliances, and the unyielding belief in their cause. Foreign aid, particularly from France, proved crucial, providing soldiers, supplies, and naval support. By 1783, the revolution culminated in the Treaty of Paris, formally recognizing the United States of America as an independent nation. The dream of freedom, once a radical idea, had become a reality. But independence was only the beginning. The fledgling nation now faced the challenge of creating a government capable of uniting diverse states and peoples under a common purpose. Chapter 4. The American Revolution. The American Revolution was more than a war, it was a transformative struggle for identity, freedom, and the right to self-govern. By 1775, tensions between the 13 colonies and Britain had escalated into open conflict. What began as small skirmishes in Massachusetts soon became a full-scale war that would shape the future of an entire continent. The war began at Lexington and Concord, where colonial militias clashed with British troops in April 1775. These early confrontations demonstrated the colony's determination and resourcefulness, proving that ordinary citizens could stand up to the might of the British Empire. Shortly afterward, the Battle of Bunker Hill showcased the bravery and resilience of the colonial forces, despite ultimately being a British tactical victory. The Declaration of Independence, adopted on July 4, 1776, gave the revolution a clear purpose: liberty and self-determination. This document unified the colonies, transforming local resistance into a national movement. Yet, the path to victory was fraught with challenges. British forces were well-trained, well-supplied, and experienced in conventional European warfare. The war strategy for the colonies relied heavily on mobility, surprise attacks, and the support of local militias. Guerrilla tactics, combined with conventional battles, allowed colonial forces to survive against a more powerful enemy. Key victories at Trenton and Princeton boosted morale, proving that the Continental Army could challenge British forces and sustain a protracted conflict. Foreign alliances. The colonies' victory was aided significantly by international support. France, eager to weaken Britain after previous conflicts, provided troops, naval forces, and essential supplies. Spain and the Netherlands also contributed support, further tipping the balance. Benjamin Franklin, serving as a diplomat in France, played a pivotal role in securing these alliances. Major battles and turning points. Saratoga, 1777, a decisive colonial victory that convinced France to formally join the war. Yorktown, 1781, the final major battle, where combined colonial and French forces trapped British General Cornwallis, forcing one based on consent of the governed, individual rights, and representative institutions. By 1783, after 8 years of struggle, perseverance, and sacrifice, Britain formally recognized American independence in the Treaty of Paris, marking the birth of a new nation. The American Revolution set a precedent that would inspire freedom movements around the world. It demonstrated that ordinary people, united by common ideals and resilient in the face of adversity, could challenge the most powerful empires and claim their destiny. Yet, independence was only the beginning. The United States now faced the immense task of nation-building, transforming revolutionary ideals into a functioning government capable of uniting 13 diverse colonies under one banner. Chapter 5. Building a Nation. With independence won, the newly formed United States faced a daunting challenge: how to govern a nation made up of 13 diverse and autonomous states. The revolutionary spirit had united the colonies against Britain, but now the task was to build a stable, functioning government that balanced local autonomy with national unity. The Articles of Confederation. The first attempt at national governance came in the form of the Articles of Confederation, ratified in 1781. These articles created a loose alliance of states with a weak central government. Each state retained significant independence, controlling taxes, trade, and internal affairs. The central government could conduct foreign policy and manage the military, but it lacked the power to levy taxes or enforce laws effectively. The limitations of the articles soon became clear: financial instability, interstate disputes, and an inability to manage trade or pay war debts caused growing frustration. Shays' Rebellion in 1786–87, where Massachusetts farmers rose against economic injustices, highlighted the urgent need for a stronger national government. The Constitutional Convention. In 1787, delegates from 12 states convened in Philadelphia for the Constitutional Convention, tasked with creating a new framework of government. Leaders such as George Washington, James Madison, and Alexander Hamilton debated passionately over the structure, powers, and limits of the federal government. Key debates. The delegates faced major questions. How should representation be allocated between large and small states? The Great Compromise created a bicameral legislature with the House of Representatives and the Senate. How should power be divided between federal and state governments? The Constitution established a federal system with shared authority. How to protect individual rights? The Bill of Rights, ratified in 1791, guaranteed freedoms such as speech, religion, and due process, addressing concerns of anti-federalists. The new Constitution established a strong central government while preserving the autonomy of states, creating a balance that would endure for centuries. George Washington was unanimously elected as the first president of the United States in 1789, setting precedents for leadership, governance, and the peaceful transition of power. Early challenges. The young nation faced numerous challenges: economic instability, conflicts with Native Americans on the western frontier, and debates over the role of government tested the resilience of the Constitution. Washington's leadership, combined with the vision of other founding fathers, helped navigate these early crises. Political evolution. Political factions soon emerged, with Federalists advocating for a strong central government and Democratic Republicans, led by Thomas Jefferson, emphasizing states' rights and individual liberty. These debates shaped the nation's political landscape, creating a system of checks and balances that continues today. By the end of the 18th century, the United States had transformed from a loose collection of colonies into a united nation with a functioning government, a codified constitution, and a growing sense of national identity. The foundations laid during this period would support expansion, conflict, and innovation in the decades to come, guiding the young nation toward its place as a global power. Chapter 6. Expansion and Conflict. As the United States entered the 19th century, the nation faced both opportunities and challenges. The vast continent offered fertile lands, rivers, and natural resources, beckoning settlers westward. This period of westward expansion shaped the economy, society, and political landscape of the young nation, but it also brought conflict, displacement, and moral dilemmas that would define America's future. One of the most significant milestones was the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, which doubled the nation's size and opened vast tracts of land for settlement. The Lewis and Clark expedition explored these territories, documenting landscapes, wildlife, and Native American tribes. These explorers paved the way for settlers, traders, and pioneers who would follow. Conflict with Native Americans. Westward expansion came at a cost. Native American communities faced displacement, broken treaties, and violent conflicts. Policies such as the Indian Removal Act of 1830 forcibly relocated tribes from their ancestral lands, culminating in the tragic Trail of Tears, where thousands perished during forced marches to designated territories. Economic development. The 19th century also witnessed rapid economic growth. The Industrial Revolution brought innovations in manufacturing, transportation, and communication. Factories emerged in northern cities, while canals, steamboats, and railroads connected distant regions, fueling commerce and migration. Slavery and sectional tensions. While the North industrialized, the South remained largely agricultural, relying heavily on slave labor to produce cotton, tobacco, and other cash crops. The moral, economic, and political divisions between North and South deepened, leading to heated debates over the expansion of slavery into new territories. These differences were not only economic but cultural and political. The South feared losing influence in the federal government, while abolitionist movements in the North sought to end slavery. Compromises, such as the Missouri Compromise of 1820, temporarily eased tensions, but they foreshadowed the larger conflicts to come. Manifest destiny and territorial expansion. Americans embraced the idea of manifest destiny, believing it was their divine right to expand across the continent. This ideology justified annexing territories such as Texas, Oregon, and parts of the Southwest following the Mexican-American War, 1846 to 1848. The promise of land, opportunity, and wealth drove settlers westward, but these expansions often came at the expense of Mexico, Native Americans, and existing communities. Social and cultural impact. Westward expansion also influenced American culture. New towns and cities became hubs of commerce, learning, and culture. The frontier spirit fostered values of independence, resilience, and innovation. However, it also intensified debates over slavery, states' rights, and the balance of power between regions. By the mid-19th century, the United States had grown dramatically in size and influence. Yet, the seeds of conflict were already sown. The struggle between expansion, economic interests, and moral principles over slavery would soon erupt into the nation's most defining conflict, the Civil War. Chapter 7. Civil War and Reconstruction. By the mid-19th century, the United States was a nation divided. The North had industrialized rapidly, while the South remained agrarian and heavily dependent on slavery. Political, economic, and cultural differences between the regions intensified, and decades of compromise failed to resolve the conflict. Tensions erupted in 1861, plunging the nation into the Civil War, the bloodiest conflict in American history. Causes of the Civil War. Slavery was the central issue dividing the nation. The South saw slavery as essential to its economy and way of life, while the North increasingly opposed its expansion. The Missouri Compromise, 1820, Compromise of 1850, and Kansas-Nebraska Act, 1854, attempted to balance interests, but each compromise only postponed conflict. The election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860, who opposed the spread of slavery into new territories, prompted 7 Southern states to secede from the Union, forming the Confederate States of America. By April 1861, Confederate forces attacked Fort Sumter, marking the beginning of the Civil War. The Civil War saw some of the most iconic battles in American history. Battle of Bull Run, 1861, the first major engagement, showing that the war would be long and brutal. Battle of Antietam, 1862, the bloodiest single-day battle in U.S. history, leading to the issuance of the Emancipation Proclamation. Battle of Gettysburg, 1863, a turning point, where Union forces halted the Confederate advance into the North. Siege of Vicksburg, 1863, gave the Union control of the Mississippi River, splitting the Confederacy. Emancipation Proclamation. On January 1, 1863, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring all enslaved people in Confederate-held territory free. While it did not immediately free all enslaved individuals, it reframed the war as a fight for human freedom and allowed African Americans to join the Union Army, bolstering its strength. Leadership and strategy defined the war. Ulysses S. Grant emerged as a brilliant Union general, later appointed commander of all Union forces. Robert E. Lee, commanding the Confederate Army, demonstrated tactical genius, though ultimately unable to overcome resource limitations and manpower shortages. War's end and consequences. In April 1865, after years of brutal fighting, Confederate forces surrendered at Appomattox Courthouse, effectively ending the war. The conflict had claimed over 600,000 lives, devastated the South, and transformed the nation politically, socially, and economically. Reconstruction era. The post-war period, known as Reconstruction, 1865 to 1877, aimed to rebuild the South, integrate formerly enslaved individuals into society, and redefine civil rights. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery, the 14th Amendment granted citizenship and equal protection, and the 15th Amendment protected voting rights for African American men. Challenges of Reconstruction. Despite legal progress, the era faced significant resistance. Organizations like the Ku Klux Klan sought to intimidate and oppress African Americans. Economic hardship, political corruption, and violence hindered efforts to create equality. By 1877, federal troops withdrew from the South, effectively ending Reconstruction and leaving many promises unfulfilled. The Civil War and Reconstruction reshaped the United States. The nation survived its gravest internal crisis, abolished slavery, and laid the groundwork for future civil rights movements. Yet, the struggle for equality and unity continued, reflecting the complexities of freedom and democracy in a diverse and growing nation. Chapter 8. The 20th Century and Modernization. As the United States entered the 20th century, it transformed from a largely agrarian society into an industrial and technological powerhouse. Urbanization, immigration, and industrial growth reshaped the nation's economy, culture, and social fabric. The United States, once focused on survival and expansion, was now stepping onto the world stage as a global power. Industrialization and urban growth. The late 19th and early 20th centuries marked the height of the Industrial Revolution in America. Railroads connected the nation coast to coast, factories produced mass goods, and technological innovations like electricity and the telegraph transformed daily life. Cities expanded rapidly, attracting waves of immigrants from Europe, bringing diverse cultures, languages, and traditions. Progressive era reforms. Rapid growth also brought social and economic challenges, poor working conditions, child labor, corruption, and inequality. The Progressive Era, 1890s to 1920s, saw reformers like Theodore Roosevelt and Jane Addams advocating for labor laws, women's suffrage, and social welfare programs. These reforms laid the foundation for a more equitable and modern society. America in World Wars. The United States initially remained neutral in World War I, but by 1917, it entered the conflict to support the Allies. American troops helped tip the balance, contributing to victory and establishing the U.S. as a key player in international affairs. Between the wars, the U.S. experienced both prosperity and hardship. The Roaring Twenties brought cultural innovation, jazz, cinema, and economic growth, while the Great Depression of the 1930s caused widespread unemployment and poverty. Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal implemented social programs and public works to revive the economy. World War II and global leadership. The United States' entry into World War II after the attack on Pearl Harbor, 1941, transformed the nation once again. The U.S. mobilized its economy, workforce, and military to fight in Europe and the Pacific. Key contributions included technological innovation, industrial production, and strategic leadership. The war ended with victory in 1945, marking America as a preeminent global power. Civil rights movement. The mid-20th century also saw the rise of the civil rights movement, challenging racial segregation and inequality. Leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and Malcolm X fought tirelessly for justice, culminating in landmark legislation such as the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Technological and cultural innovation. The United States became a center of innovation, pioneering space exploration, computing, and medicine. The Apollo 11 mission in 1969 landed the first humans on the moon, symbolizing American ingenuity and ambition. Cultural influence spread globally through music, cinema, literature, and art, shaping modern society. Economic and political transformation. The latter half of the 20th century brought economic prosperity, political challenges, and social change. The U.S. played a central role in the Cold War, navigating global tensions with the Soviet Union while promoting democracy and capitalism worldwide. Domestically, debates over civil rights, women's rights, and environmental issues shaped the national agenda. By the end of the 20th century, the United States had emerged as a technological, economic, and military superpower. Its influence stretched across the globe, from politics and economics to culture and science. Yet, modernization brought new challenges, social inequality, global conflicts, and environmental concerns, reminding Americans that the journey toward progress is ongoing. Chapter 9. Contemporary America. As the United States entered the 21st century, it faced a rapidly changing world. Technology, globalization, and social transformation reshaped the nation's economy, culture, and international influence. Contemporary America is a complex tapestry of innovation, diversity, and ongoing challenges, a nation defined by both its achievements and its aspirations. Economic transformation. The U.S. economy shifted from manufacturing to technology and services. Silicon Valley became a global hub for innovation, producing companies that transformed communication, transportation, and entertainment. Startups, entrepreneurship, and the digital revolution created unprecedented wealth and opportunity, while also challenging traditional industries and labor markets. Social change and diversity. America's population became increasingly diverse, with immigration, multiculturalism, and social progress shaping society. Movements advocating for racial, gender, and LGBTQ+ equality gained momentum, influencing politics, education, and cultural life. The nation's identity evolved to embrace pluralism while grappling with issues of inequality and social justice. Political landscape. Contemporary America is defined by a vibrant but often polarized political system. Presidential elections, congressional debates, and judicial rulings reflect deep ideological divisions. Yet democratic institutions, checks and balances, and civic engagement remain central to the nation's governance. Global influence and diplomacy. The United States continues to play a pivotal role in global affairs. It is a leader in international trade, technology, and military presence. Diplomatic efforts, global partnerships, and humanitarian initiatives reflect America's commitment to shaping a stable and connected world, even amidst international conflicts and challenges. Technological innovation. The pace of innovation accelerated in the 21st century. The rise of the internet, smartphones, artificial intelligence, renewable energy, and space exploration has transformed daily life and expanded America's influence. These advancements continue to redefine work, education, and communication. Environmental and global challenges. Contemporary America faces pressing challenges, including climate change, natural disasters, and global health crises. Policy decisions, scientific innovation, and public awareness shape the nation's ability to address these issues while maintaining economic growth and social well-being. Cultural influence. American culture continues to shape the world through music, film, fashion, and digital media. Hollywood, streaming platforms, and global sports events showcase the country's creativity and soft power. This cultural export enhances America's global identity while reflecting domestic diversity and innovation. Contemporary America is a nation of contrasts and possibilities. Its history, marked by struggle, resilience, innovation, and ambition, has shaped a society capable of confronting challenges while striving toward progress. From the early days of colonization to its current role as a global leader, the United States continues to evolve, guided by its enduring principles of freedom, democracy, and opportunity.